Today is Friday. It is Chav Gimel Shvat Tavshin Ayin Daled. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamorim Tavshin Yud Aleph Tavshin Yud Beis in the Mamar of Sihiye Meshakeiloh Tavshin Yud Beis, page Reish Chav Daled. We're in the middle of the second of this paragraph, beginning with Vizehu. I think we should go back to the beginning of it. Basically, the Rebbe has established that man has to serve Hashem not only because it is meaningful and necessary from the perspective of man, but also because it is meaningful and necessary from the perspective of Hashem, even at the highest level, even when we talk about Atzmos, the very essence of Hashem. And that serving Hashem needs to be with Ahav and Yira, with love and fear. Fear being the foundational aspect of the serving Hashem, because to begin with, you need the acceptance of Hashem's yoke, just by accepting it, which emanates from Yira, from awe, from fear. Then you also need to have Avas Hashem, because you need to transform the animal soul and the body, and for that you need love, because love transforms, whereas fear only imposes Hashem's presence and will. And that love of Hashem is necessary both for the transformation of the animal soul and for the fulfillment of the godly soul, for the godly soul to fulfill its mission, for the purpose of which it came down into this world. And that is the Sihiye Meshakeiloh. That's the meaning of the pasuk, that you should not be a miscarrying or barren woman, in the sense human, in your land. Barren and miscarrying is a reference to the birth of the spiritual children, so to speak, which are what Ahava and Yira, because they are the midas which are born from the seichel, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya. And Ba'artzecha, once we have Ahava and Yira, love and fear of Hashem, we should not be caught up in our own desires and our own will, and also not have this sense of, Baruch Hashem, I'm serving Hashem properly, this sense of self-satisfaction, because self-satisfaction could bring to stagnation in serving Hashem. Once a person is satisfied where he's up to, he doesn't advance, which means in the parable, it would mean that the child is born but he doesn't grow. The person has to grow. So that is the Ba'artzecha. And then the Rebbe says that if the pasuk goes on, the Rebbe explains that, and the pasuk goes on and says, "As misper yamecha amalei," that Hashem fills a person's days. And the Rebbe, of course, noted that the pasuk begins in the third person and continues in the first person, because those aspects that are spoken in the first person are components that are necessary for things that come about through the intervention of Hashem, because it's difficult or maybe even impossible for the person to reach it on his own. So, as misperi amecha amale means to say Hashem fills the person's days and also makes the person's days shine, as it were. Because the Rebbe said mispar is from the expression of Shemayim Saprim, glistening and glowing, Evan Saprim, sapphire stone. That if a person misses something in his Avodas Hashem, right? So Hashem fills it, because you're talking about levels of Gettlichkeit from the very essence of Hashem, which are beyond being blemished through a lack or a deficiency in serving Hashem. So when the person does what he can, as much as he can, to serve Hashem in the most full way, in the fullest, the most appropriate way. So if there's something lacking, Hashem fills that. And again it says Misper Mecha Amalei, I will fill, again talking in the first person, because this comes from the very essence of Hashem, from the highest level. And then the pasuk goes on and says, I will remove illness from among you, and again in the first person. That's where we're up to. This is also the meaning of the verse, the last part of the pasuk. And I will remove illness from among you. In a direct expression, meaning to say in the first person, like the narrator who is now speaking. The narrator who usually tells us what is the conversation between Hashem and Moshe, all of a sudden begins to speak. Who is that narrator? That's Hashem himself. So first we have to understand, what is the illness that we're referring to? The illness concerning which the verse says, and I will remove it. Hashem says, I will remove it. What type of illness are we talking about? It's such a type of illness, even when one serves Hashem. Even when Hashem has blessed your bread and your water. What are we referring to? The lachmecha, bread and water in the spiritual sense, refers to the written Torah and to the oral Torah, right? Because the written Torah is fixed, like bread, and the oral Torah is the interpretation. It's more flexible. It's like water that, I forgot the English word, there's a word that describes the fluidity of water, that it flows into all crevices and cracks and corners. It gets into every place. Or so lach mecha, bread and water is either the written Torah and the oral Torah, or Torah mitzvahs. Or another interpretation is that it refers to Torah and mitzvahs, that bread would be Torah and water would be mitzvahs, the commandments. Similar idea, because the mitzvahs, I think this is the interpretation, that the mitzvahs reach in actual fact into the lowest levels of existence, that we fulfill mitzvahs even with the lowest levels of existence, and we lift them up to Kedusha. Like water that reaches in even into the lowest, it'll find the lowest place where it can flow. And concerning learning Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs, it says, what does that mean? Hashem blesses your bread and your water. Hashem blesses your avodas Hashem, your service of Hashem, which means to say, that we're talking about a person who is in a state of serving Hashem through the fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs, as a result of also having what? In addition to his effort, he also has the blessing from the levels of Shem Havaya, from Yud Kei Vav Kei. So we're talking about somebody that is serving Hashem basically at the highest level. V'gam oz, and even then, even somebody that is at this state, there can still be illness. And that illness is not just plain illness, it's an illness which necessitates Hashem himself removing it. Specifically through the third one who speaks, meaning through Hashem himself. What type of illness could this be? What type of illness could somebody who's in a state of shleimus, of completeness?
What stage is he talking about now?
Shleimus, you're at the highest level. You have ahava, you have yira,
and ratzon.
You don't have the sense of self-satisfaction. All the things that are,
and you're still there.
and you suffer from an illness. Yeah. What illness could we be talking about? Right. The explanation is the illness that is stated here, just as machla stam. It doesn't say what type of illness, just as machla, illness, a general statement. What are we talking about? We're talking about the illness which is the root of all the illnesses. We're talking about such an illness which is the source of all illness. What is this illness that we're talking about? This is the idea of the hergish atzme, this self-feeling that comes as a result of the sin of the tree of knowledge. We've learned this a number of times already in the previous Mamarim, that before the sin of the tree of knowledge, particularly we had a pretty long discussion about this when we learned the Mamar Vayikach Hashem Elokim Es Adam, Parshas Breishis of this year, Tavshin Yud Beis, that before Eitz Hadas, before the sin of the tree of knowledge, man was not aware that there's good or there's bad. The normal state of consciousness, of existence of man was, says da God of the world, there's a God of the world, and the person does what Hashem wants. What happened through the sin of the tree of knowledge, man introduced through that awareness into the world, that there is good and there is bad. Like the Arizal says, before the Chet Eitzadas, before the sin of the tree of knowledge, there was klippa, there was bad, so to speak, but they lived mitachas l'kol ha'olamis, in the abyss. They were not within the consciousness of the world, and they would have died a natural death had there not been the Eitz Hadas, the sin of the tree of knowledge, and then all that would have been was a state of bliss and utopia as it existed where in the Gan Eden before the sin of the tree of knowledge. When man sinned, what happened was that klippa managed to get into the consciousness of the world. So now there became an awareness: there's good and there's bad, and that is why man suddenly realized that he's clothless and he needs to cover himself. He suddenly became aware that there could be things that belong in one domain and belong in another domain, right? So this idea of self-feeling, self-awareness came as a result of the sin of the tree of knowledge. As is known, that before the sin, there wasn't this whole concept of self-feeling, self-awareness. As it says in the Pasuk, that both of them, Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, were clothless, and they were not embarrassed. This was, of course, before the sin of the tree of knowledge. The idea of this, the sin was da'as, eitz hada'as. It caused the awareness. As it says in the verse, she suddenly realized that what? That the tree is good to eat. This was the beginning of this sense of self-awareness. So this is the illness we're talking about over here. This is the point actually that you're referring to, Harris. That a person who serves Hashem at the highest level, and he serves Hashem with lachmachaves, meimecha, with teresh b'chsav, teresh b'alpeh, Torah and mitzvahs in totality, uveirach, and he also has what? The blessing of Hashem and all of that. Even such a person, Yachaliyas could be, v'yeshne, and there is still, by such a person, in Yinamachal, this idea of this illness. What illness? The self-feeling. Why? Because the sin of the tree of knowledge had an effect on everybody. Gam al tzaddikim, even on the righteous. The gam al tzaddikim gemurim, even on tzaddikim that are totally real tzaddikim, full, wholesome tzaddikim, at the highest level. They also cannot detach themselves from this phenomenon that Eitz Hadas brought into the world, the self-awareness. As the Chazal say in the Talmud, in Shabbos, in Bava Basra, Dalid Meisu et Yeshol Nachash. There are 4 people who died as a result of the scheming, of the plotting, or the counsel of the snake. What does that mean? They had no other sin. They had no sin. They only died as a result of the fact that the Nachash, the snake, the serpent, convinced Chava to eat from the tree of knowledge, which brought death into the world. The 4, I think, are Binyamin, the son of Yaakov, I think Amram,
you can look it up.
It's in the Gemara, it's 4 of them. Anyway, the Gemara brings the 4, the Zohar brings some others. But anyway, the idea is that there are such tzaddikim that die only as a result of what? Of the Chet Eitz Hadas, because of the snake. In fact, when the Moshe Cordovero passed away, the famous Kabbalist, the Ramak, the Arizal made a hesped, the eulogy. And he eulogized them by saying, the verse says, I think in Parshas Kiseitze, the verse says that if a person will have a sin, which, I'm giving you the simple meaning of the pasuk, a person will have a sin, which the judgment is death, the penalty is death. He needs to be hanged on a tree. Hang him. Hanging. He talks about it. Right? So the Arizal said, when he eulogized the Ramak, the Moshe Cordovero, he said, Ki yeh be'ish, chet, as we learned also before, chet is from the expression to be chet malashon chasarn. Chet is from the expression of lacking. By a tzaddik, when you say sin, chet, we're talking about what? Not actual sin, but we're talking about lacking, right? So chet means to lack or to miss, right? When you fire on a target, when you shoot at a target and you miss the target, it means lahacht is amatoro. You've missed the target, right? So he says like this: Ki yeh be'ish chet mishmat mavis. There will be a man who dies, but it'll be chet. It'll be lacking mishpat mavis. The reason for his death. There will be no reason for his death. Why? Because he's a complete tzaddik. V'salisa oisal eitz. Then you should hang the reason on the tree. Which tree? The tree of knowledge. So he said about the Ramak that he died only as a result of what? The fact that there was the Chet Eitz Hadas, which brought death into the world. So we see that even great tzaddikim, what does it mean? So this is the simple taich, but the Rebbe taiches, and this is what the Alter Rebbe actually says in Torah Oir. Shesibas misasam. We're talking about such tzaddikim that the reason for the death einay ela beglal Chet Eitz Hadas is only because of the sin of the tree of knowledge. V'lachein, that's the word. Gam tzaddikim murim shaykh in the hergish atzmei. It means to say that even by complete tzaddikim there is some association to this feeling this state of self-feeling, of self-awareness, right? That's what it means that he died as a result of the tree of knowledge. That means to say that the tree of knowledge had an effect on everybody. This idea of having the self-feeling, not being able to be completely, totally bottled, right? That's a result of Eitz Hadas. As high as you are, and as refined as you are, and as bottled as you are, you still have some association to that phenomenon. Ukiyodua, as is known, as Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in Perek Lamed Hey, Shafilu Tzadik Gomor, even a complete Tzadik, Oved Hashem B'yireh V'Ave B'Tanugim, who serves Hashem with awe and with love that emanates from pleasure, Eine bottle b'metzias legamari is not completely nullified. Elohu davar b'fnei atzma, he's still a separate entity. Yirei Hashem v'oyev, he is the one that fears God, and he is the one that loves God. Yesh mishna there is someone who loves. V'lo yagia l'malas d'vikusi b'Hashem, k'may shehoysen ishmoseh k'edmiridas lamata, and he will not reach, he cannot reach the level of cleaving to Hashem as the soul cleaved to Hashem before it descended down below. It's impossible. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that's why there's a level of Chokhmah, and so on and so forth. But be that as it may, this is the point. Because of the Chet Tzadas, a person as high and as lofty and as great as his Avedus Hashem is, service of Hashem is, can never, ever really and truly and fully become totally bottled to Hashem, as he was before the soul came down below. Certainly when we talk about the level of Beinanim, intermediaries, certainly when we talk about people that are lower than a Beinani. By them certainly there is this sense of self-feeling and self-awareness that we are conscious and mindful of all the time. So how do we deal with it? This removal of this illness known as self-feeling, it's impossible for it to be, for a person to attain it through man's service of Hashem on his own strength. So how does that happen? It only comes about through a very lofty and exalted emanation drawing down from Hashem. It means that the Eibishter does it. That's why it says, and I will remove this illness from you. In the first person, who is I? Who is the I that removes this illness? Shekoi. This refers al atmas u'mahus and baruch Hu, to the very quintessence of Hashem Himself. Kiniskal the as mentioned before. So this is the idea of Sihiye Meshakeiloh, Vakara, and Vavadim Hashem Alekechem in the spiritual sense. The Kol Inyanim Eila and all chapter 8. And all these matters nimshochem gam begashmis are drawn down also in the physical sense. Kipshutei, meaning in the in physical phenomena. Hein benegay. So what are we talking about over here? We're talking about this. The Rebbe began at the beginning of the Mamar. Bona chaya mezena, children, life, and sustenance. Right. So hein benegay lemezena revicha. All these things come down in a practical way, in a gashmistic way, in our world, in connection to sustenance in abundance. Concerning which it says, and I will bless your bread and your water in the Pashat Kipshutei, in the simple sense of abundance in Parnasa. Also in connection to life, into life and health. Concerning which it says in the verse that Hashem removes illness from among you. And he adds, as the days of the number of your days I will fill, which means to say long life, good health and long life. And also connection to offspring, children, which it says, there will not be a miscarrying or barren woman in your land. It means, again, in the simple sense, because then all this nasa, by having all of this through in the spiritual sense, Hashem, and also in the physical sense, this becomes hachana, a preparation, to the idea of entering into the land, to the land of Israel, which means the state of being in a state of when Mashiach comes, concerning which the pasuk continues, and all of this should be for us, speedily in our days, through our righteous Mashiach. And in the footnote 90, there was the Rebbe elaborated more on this, but it's missing because the transcribers and the repeaters didn't remember exactly what the Rebbe said. But the bottom line is, this should all be manifest among us, within us, in the Ruchnis Dike sense and in the Gashmis Dike sense. We should have Mashiach Tzidkenu, as the Rebbe says, speedily in our days. This concludes this wonderful special Mamar of the Sihiye Meshakeiloh. And as we know, Mr. Shem HaShabbos will be a Fabrengen, and Harris will...
Harris is going to speak.
Der Elam wird sich mishtatev sein, and you will share.
Your late decision, and unfortunately I've got an injury. So
Akiva, so
you're on the bench.
We call it.
You're on the bench, so to speak.
Coming
off the bench.
As we call it in America, you're the pinch hitter. The pinch hitter. And the Mitzvah Shem on Sunday, we're starting the Mamar of Purim.
Okay, very good.